On September 15th, the spacecraft known as Cassini, after 2 decades of devoted service, finally dove into the atmosphere of Saturn. What a poetic conclusion to a legendary mission! Scientists were of the opinion that it had seen it all. The hexagons of whirling clouds at Saturn's North Pole, the icy geysers of Enceladus and Titan's methane lakes. The data and images were archived, the mission considered complete, and it was closed. But Cassini didn't just fall, sent something back. And what it transmitted, hidden away in the midst of a series of ordinary visuals, wasn't discovered until several years later when a mighty quantum AI scanned the final frames. What it found has left even the most skeptical minds still. This was not a digital glitch or a blurry shadow. It was a structured, intelligent pattern, a signal that had been hiding in plain sight. A message encoded not in sound or light, but in mathematics, geometry, and silence. A message that seems to say, you weren't just looking at Saturn. We were watching you. Stay with us. What Cassini had previously captured could be the first breath, or the last unquestionable evidence that something or someone has been waiting. On Saturn from the start, Cassini's mission was a triumph. It's made available to humanity the best views of Saturn and its moons ever. Countless high-resolution images were taken, processed, categorized, and placed into digital archives, where they remained unopened for years. Among them were a group of photographs taken a few minutes before the probe's disintegration. These images were praised because of their aesthetic appeal. But nothing more, or so it appeared. It wasn't until 2025, when a private lab applied quantum image processing to enhance faint cosmic data, that something strange surfaced. In the final frames of Cassini were subvisual echoes with geometrical repetition. Distortions that didn't match any known atmospheric behavior. They weren't flaws. They weren't compression errors. They were patterns identical across various frames, angles, and timestamps. There was something, and it had made sure we would eventually see it. These images were reprocessed by an AI, a quantum scanning capable neural network that could analyze beyond visible light ranges and determine the structure of mathematical symmetries. The initial goal was to blur interstellar images and reduce noise, making telescope photos clearer. But with Cassini, it did something different. It began establishing a deliberate structure, repeating Fibonacci spirals, prime number sequences, and golden ratios embedded in the visuals. The shapes were subtle, woven like a watermark into the atmosphere of Saturn at first. Researchers assumed it was an artifact of the algorithm, a computational hallucination, but the AI kept finding them. With every new image, the patterns grew in clarity. They aligned themselves with grids emanating from particular coordinates on the surface of Saturn, magnetically aligned coordinates, previously deemed to be data noise by scientists. It became evident this was not a software malfunction. This was a signal, and it had been waiting for the appropriate device to hear it. As researchers pushed the AI further, they discovered that the shapes weren't just pretty designs. They were codes and numbers, sequences that used mathematical constants, common to human knowledge. Pi, Euler's number, prime patterns. These numbers were embedded as pixels in arrangements that spanned multiple image layers. It was as if something out there had comprehended our science and was responding with respect. The structure reflected the reasoning behind humanity's golden record. Shipped with Voyager. Use universal math to communicate intelligence. However, this time, the message wasn't outbound. It was coming in. Something had answered. The majority of the patterns matched Saturn's regions that are unstable and where Earth-made sensors had previously retrieved no clean data. We now know why. It wasn't natural instability. It was encrypted data, a cloak designed not to prevent detection, but to delay understanding until the appropriate instrument, time, and civilization finally came along. However, the most terrifying discovery was that Cassini was programmed to take a burst of 12 rapid images before its signal was permanently lost. Only 11 were deciphered. The 12th frame is missing, unaltered and unharmed intact, but unreadable. It was transmitted. The unprocessed binary packet exists, but no tool on Earth, not even the AI, has broken it. It's as if this last image activated a security lock, an encryption layer not created by humans. Now, some experts believe this image may contain a direct resemblance, possibly even a symbol, something that would have made everything unambiguous. But someone, or something, didn't want us to see it, not yet. It's possibly never. As the research continued, cross-referencing Cassini's final patterns with the environment of Saturn, a new theory began to take shape, one that didn't just involve the planet itself, but its moons. Titan, Enceladus, and Dione, all moons Cassini had studied in great detail, seemed to have geographical alignments analogous to the same ratios found in the anomalous images. But here's the twist. Those ratios also corresponded to ancient ... the symbolism of the Earth, spiral petroglyphs, numerical ratios, and pyramidal alignments found in undiscovered megalithic structures. Was this just a fluke? Or was it a thing that made use of Saturn's system to reflect the intelligence that is already there on Earth? Some scientists started to refer to it as the Saturn Code, a set of cosmic geometry that appeared to extend across both deep space and humanity's past. At the final Cassini mission, the center of this code transmission hung in the air like a maze encased in fire, while most of the data was open to the public. Whistleblower organizations that conduct inside space research began to release snippets of internal communication, audio logs, emails, and even private videos of the lab. These revealed something that really worries me. A few of the initial AI results were immediately classified. There had been a decision, quietly and without the knowledge of others, to withhold any frames where the geometric shapes were recognizable due to patterns, especially anything that might be interpreted as language or symbolism. In a triangular pattern in one frame, perfectly symmetrical edges emerged over the southern hemisphere of Saturn. In another was a matching sequence of pulses, a Morse code rhythm. The researchers the project was reportedly being worked on were silenced. Some were reassigned, others forced into NDAs that prohibited them from even discussing the nature of the found objects. It was no longer just a scientific puzzle. It was now a question of control over who decides when the truth is within reach of humanity. A divide in the global scientific community has formed. On one side are those who insist that the patterns are the result of natural events boosted by the processing of quantum images. They argue that pareidolia, our propensity to see patterns and randomness, is to blame. However, on the other side are cryptologists, scientists, mathematicians who assert that no process could consistently produce ratios between taken images that are so precise from different angles, distances, and times. The signal goes beyond simply repeating. It evolves, seems to respond. Also, the omitted 12th frame, now known as I, is regarded by many as a safety net, a final gatekeeper for a message meant to be truly understood only when we are willing to receive it. But who or which group? That ceiling. Despite NASA's assertions of silence, the community of independent researchers' numbers have exploded. Code forums, private labs, and repositories around the world are now obsessed with cracking the final transmission from Cassini. Some claim to have made progress in decrypting the 12th frame, reporting unreadable glimpses of strange architecture or symbols. Others assert that the files don't align with typical error codes, suggesting obfuscation with intent, as if the image remains locked until activated by a specific external input. One rogue researcher even suggested that the trigger is not a Keyer file, but rather an occurrence and alignment of the stars, a rise in solar radiation, or perhaps a human-level exploration, the sort of instance that changes our understanding forever. The entire world awaits that day. Yet the countdown has already started, and Cassini's final gift may be far more than just a picture, possibly a door. Cassini was much more than a machine, was a witness, a journeyman who quietly slipped, without weapons, into the unknown. There were no flags, only wide-eyed curiosity and the curiosity of a civilization as a whole behind it. We believed we were the only ones observing. We were mistaken. The final images, those enigmatic encrypted image patterns, including the omitted 12th frame, were not by chance. They weren't malfunctions. Well, they were indicators, like signs that someone far away left on the trail, something clever in front of us, something long-standing and patient. And now, all these years later, after the ruins of Cassini, the echoes of its final breaths are being comprehended not just by humans, but by machines designed to outthink us. What they discover shakes the very foundation of our conceptual space. The goal of exploration was, perhaps, that we were never the adventurers. We might have been the studied, observed, and predicted. One final image was locked and awaited, like a cosmic time capsule engineered not for the exact moment it was taken, but for the moment we are prepared to observe.